Okay, good evening. So it is December 1st now today, and it just seems to be getting more and more ugly of the media over here with their lies. And so I felt led to do another video today to put some more truth out to counteract the lies of the enemy. And so I don't have a professional setup here or anything, but I do have a powerful testimony. And I'm going to share my testimony for those who don't know my testimony today. But I wanted to start out with saying that Biden did not win the presidency. This is a lie of the enemy. This is a lie of the media. And I had talked about this a couple of videos ago, how there's a whole globalist agenda behind this that's backed by the Rothschilds. You know, how they're trying to, they can manipulate the media into these narratives. And um, he did not win. So, and I mentioned, I said in this video a couple, that the media is the only power that they have left in there, because Trump has wiped out um, the the monetary system. So the media is their main source of lies they're putting out. So they are just adamant. They're like pushing it. They're like grasping at any straw that they can. And Biden is walking around in a boot, okay? And I believe he's on house arrest, like John McCain was before he was executed, okay? So John McCain had a boot on, like Biden does now, while he was on house arrest before he was executed. Okay, so I believe that Biden has now been arrested, and they're walking around acting like it's no big deal, that he's going to just, that everything's fine and dandy. No, everything is not fine and dandy. It's all a lie. Uh, he did not legally win this election. They're still counting. They have evidence of the fraud because they have the server. The server has been, and 5 soldiers lost their lives, by the way, tried to get this server, and they did. They got the server that was owned by a company called Dominion, which I believe is owned by George Soros, and so that has evidence on there that the votes were switched from Trump to Biden. So it was an illegal foreign interference. Okay, so don't listen to the media. They are just absolutely insane right now. Totally insane. It'll make you crazy if you listen to the media. So that is treason, okay? And they also have evidence through USPS that there was fraud, and they have the evidence because there was a watermark, an invisible watermark on all of our ballots. Do you think President Trump didn't already know and was planning ahead of all of these things? You think he didn't know that they were that they weren't going to go down lightly, and that this was going to just be like a battle? I mean, of course he knew all of this. Um, so they had an invisible watermark on all of the ballots. Okay, that means, and what that means is that they can trace everything. So if it ended up in the trash, if it ended up burned, anything, they can trace it. They can trace it, is my understanding, up to they can it's completely that they can trace it to wherever it ended up. It's totally accurate technology on all of the ballots. Okay, and so USPS has been caught. And so USPS workers were actually part of that, and they're all, I believe, on video doing this as well, and they've been caught. And then you got other USPS workers that have been actually giving sworn statements, saying that they were not allowed to do their job in sorting the mail like they normally would. So they were told to stand off, and And so, they're giving sworn statements now because they don't want to be caught with anything to do with this fraud. They're starting to realize now, some of the workers, that something wasn't right. Oh, really? Do you think so? My last video was exposing USPS and all the problems I've had. USPS is definitely involved. Mail fraud. They're definitely involved because they're a private entity, and so they've been part of it. They haven't been a federal entity since like the late 80s, my understanding is what I heard. So they have been a private entity for many years now. So people who think that they're working for the federal government when they're USPS employees, they're not. It's a private entity, and it has been for the last almost 20 years. So for people who don't know that, that's a new thing that we're all just learning. So, but also, and they also have evidence of the tech companies. So he had of those of you who are not aware, President Trump had a executive order in December 2018, I believe. I'm going to read the story. But so anything involving, so that executive order talks about anything involving the infrastructure of, because we had so much problems in 2016, right? So anything involving the infrastructure, there was a national security executive order put into place in December 2018. So it involved anything involving infrastructure. So anything involving anybody tampering in any way of election or infrastructure, then they could be charged with treason. It's right under his executive order. I'm going to read it. But so that includes the tech companies now are all in trouble, and because they got caught trying to sway the votes towards Biden. So that would be tampering with the infrastructure. Okay. And but then, for those of you who don't know my story, okay, I was witness to a crime at a military base, the Arizona National Guard, and I worked there for almost 6 years in the Arizona National Guard full time. And so I uncovered one of the hugest crimes at the National Guard. I uncovered a $2.7 million embezzlement scandal, but it turned out that base was basically like a money laundering operation. Okay, this is in Arizona on 52nd and McDowell, Papago Military Base. Okay, so that base is one of many that was apparently used for money laundering and human trafficking operations. Under the Obama-Biden administration, they were using military bases for for money laundering and trafficking operations. Okay, the Arizona National Guard was one of them. You can see my story by Googling $2.7 million embezzlement scandal, Arizona Guard. Okay, there was 3 soldiers that are not with us anymore that tried to say something. The same thing is going on at Fort Hood, okay, Texas. It's another base where they were doing some kind of illegal operations, and there is apparently now somewhere between 8 and 12 soldiers that are either missing or dead. Okay, so this is under the Obama-Biden administration. Okay, do you think that our country is going to allow somebody like Biden, who was involved in all of these type of things that involved trafficking and the deaths of soldiers? Do you think that we're going to allow somebody like him to be president? You got another thing coming. I think too many people in this country are awake of what's going on now. And if you don't know my story, you're hearing it for the first time. I am one of the very few survivors of this type of thing at a military base. And also, the other thing that the media is very much a part of the treason, and they have been for many years. So they were part of, for many years, saying that John McCain was a hero. Okay, so John McCain, so they were, there's this narrative like, oh, Hero McCain, he's some kind of veteran, for the veterans. Okay, that couldn't be farther from the truth. Okay, it couldn't be farther from the truth. And I was one of the soldiers that went to his office thinking, oh well, now they're coming after me just for reporting a crime. I gotta go talk to McCain, because he's supposed to be for veterans. Well, I almost ended up dead, and many soldiers ended up dead because the media was pushing the narrative that John McCain, who is head of the deep state, one of the most evil men in the world, was actually a hero. Okay? I almost ended up dead. I had deep state agents after me for years after I went to his office, and I tried to get help for different things that were happening to me at that base because John McCain knew what was happening at that base. The deep state was in on what was going on at our base. Okay? And the media for years were a part of saying, oh, John McCain, he's a hero. Okay, just like they're lying to you now, they lied to you for years. Are you going to believe them? Are you going to fall for this again? Because they are lying to you. Okay? You know how many people are dead now because they thought John McCain was a hero and they tried to go to his office in Phoenix, Arizona, and his other offices in Arizona, and anybody that he felt that knew too much is dead now. You know how many people John McCain killed? Are you kidding me? This hasn't even come out yet. This is part of my story, and this is documented. My story is documented about what I saw. And do you think that we're going to allow this type of thing to continue with Biden, of what he allowed to happen with soldiers and military bases? I don't think so. And you shouldn't fall for it, and you shouldn't allow it, and you should stand up like I am. I'm telling my story. Nobody in their right mind would allow somebody like McCain to be a president. Nobody in their right mind should ever allow him. He was involved in so much scandal that you can't half the people in this country don't even know, but I know because I was firsthand witness to this. Okay, so if you haven't heard this is the last thing I'm going to mention on this video. So this article that came out, if you are not aware, in distributed news. Okay, so Trump declared national emergency and set an election day trap for the unauthorized access of illegal and campaign infrastructure. Okay, so this is how smart our president is. He knew way ahead of time by an executive order that he signed in September 12, 2018. Okay, executive order imposing certain sanctions in the event of foreign interference in a United States election. In that executive order, declares a national emergency. That emergency is still in play to this day and was through the election, was conducted under the state of emergency, which is a crucial point to understand this story. Okay. People and organizations, in part outside the United States, are known to be able to interfere or undermine public confidence in the United States elections, including through the unauthorized accessing of election and campaign infrastructure, or the covert distribution of propaganda and disinformation. Okay, so this ties into CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, MSNBC. Okay, they have all been caught under this emergency declaration of foreign interference in U.S. elections, aided by complicit corporations on U.S. soil. Okay, the further states that this foreign interference in U.S. elections constitutes an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. Why is this relevant to anything we're seeing right now with the election fraud? Okay, because Dominion Voting Systems is a Canadian company, and Skytel is the other company that was involved, is run out of Spain. Dominion is a foreign-owned company, which makes Dominion-based election theft a foreign interference issue. Skytel is connected to George Soros and the Democrats. Okay? Bill Gates owns stock in Skytel. Dominion is Canadian. Skytel is from Spain. Both represent foreign interference, with the data routed through servers in Germany. Okay, another voting machine company, so Skytel, Great Game India report. Days after it revealed how 2020 U.S. elections were rigged by Canadian Crown agent Dominion through a so-called glitch, has found involvement in another dubious foreign company in a U.S. election meddling. Votes cast by Americans were counted by a bankrupted Spanish company called Skytel in Spain. Skytel has a long history of election fraud in various nations, including injecting backdoors in its election software. This issue has prompted experts to question why the sensitive job of counting votes was outsourced to a foreign company. How could a bankrupted Spanish company count American votes in Spain? Due to such widespread fraud, the chairman of the U.S. Federal Election Commission, Traitors, believes that the 2020 U.S. presidential election is illegitimate. What people are missing in all of this is that Trump's 2018 executive order gives the Department of Justice the power to seize all assets of individuals and companies that were complicit in aiding or covering up this foreign interference in U.S. elections. And that is what they have done. They have seized the servers. Okay, National Emergency Order specifically calls for seizure of all assets of entities directly or indirectly engaged in, sponsored, concealed, or otherwise complicit in foreign interference in a United States election. That would have to include practically every CNN fake news anchor as well, and every big tech CEO, every fake news journal terror from NBC News, the New York Times, and the Washington Post, CNN, and Fox. Okay, they are all complicit in gaslighting America and covering up the massive foreign election interference that took place. Trump's EO further explains that asset seizures shall target people and entities which have material assisted, sponsored, or provided financial, material, or technological support for, or goods or services to, or support, or activity described in subsequent of this section, or any person whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order, to be owned or controlled by, or to have acted or perpetrated to act for on behalf, directly or indirectly, any person whose property or interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order. In other words, the executive order covers every person who has been corrupted or compromised by Communist China and this directive, and that includes about 80% of Democrat lawmakers, including Senators Feinstein and Schiff. Every organization involved in the election theft and cover-up can now be seized by the U.S. government. But that's not the full extent of what's demanded. The Section 8, the order explains that the term person also means a partnership, association, trust, joint venture, corporation, group, subgroup, or other organizations. In other words, any media organization that assisted in covering up or assisting foreign interference in a U.S. election is specifically targeted by the executive order. Further, in the definition sanction, EO explains the term election infrastructure means information and communications technology and systems used by or on behalf of the federal government or a state of local government in managing the election process, including voter registration databases, voting machines, voting tabulation equipment for secure transmission of election results. That would include Dominion voting systems as well as other voting systems used in the recent election. Finally, the EO describes what it means by the term foreign interference. It means any covert, fraudulent, deceptive, unlawful actions or attempted actions of a foreign government or of any person acting as an agent or on behalf of a foreign government undertaken with the purpose or effect of influencing, undermining confidence, and or altering the result or reported result of the election, or undermining public confidence in the election process or institutions. Note the important words of altering the result or reported result of the election. This is exactly what big tech and the lying fake news have done to America. More than merely a crime, it's treason. It fell right into the national emergency trap that Trump publicly announced in 2018, which now means all these corporations and organizations can have their assets seized literally overnight. Okay? So they're coming after you, rightfully so, and I hope you all get what's yours because you deserve it. Anybody that's involved.